Welcome back to the Real Couchwives podcast, where we overanalyze all things Bravo.
We are super excited because season 8 of Summerhouse has officially premiered, and while we are slowly going to start to see what happened between Lindsay and Carl, obviously the biggest takeaway is that the Summerhouse is actually having fun.
Yes, summer should be fun. I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking fun so far.
So far, so good. So far, so good.
So, yes, we want to be able to cover Summerhouse, and to do that, we have actually added a second Real Couchwives episode per week. Woo! Bam, 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 bam.
So we're just going to add in, a quick, easy breezy, wonderful second episode each week for Summerhouse specifically.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We're Tuesdays and Saturdays, Real Couchwives, Summerhouse, Vanderpump Rules. Let's get into it. Yeah.
Let's get into it. So the episode opens, as we all know, we saw it in the trailer too, but it was still pretty epic, with Carl and Lindsay kind of like fighting, discussing, going over what's going on in their relationship. Lindsay stands up from the couch. She's like, there's no point in having any more of a conversation. You've clearly already made your decision. Talking about, of course, their marriage and their wedding and, calling it off. Obviously, then Carl kind of starts to talk about like, okay, this is the narrative that Lindsay's going to come in with. She's going to say that she was blindsided. And, they have the flash over to her on the phone with her dad being like, I was blindsided. And then Carl says, but she's been blind to these things that have gone on for the last year. Oh my God.
Was it Andy? What did Andy say to, I think, Schwartz? It made me think, like, were you blindsided or were you blind? Were you silenced
or were you silenced?
Yeah.
It is very much giving that. I know. And it's obviously it's these two people. They both have their own views about their relationship. It's so interesting to already see, like, from like the moment that they broke up, basically, the factions forming of she's gonna say she was blindsided and her saying I was blindsided.
It's gonna be so wild. I also just listened to Lindsay on Chicks in the Office, and she also said this, like, they were asking, like, when did you see it starting to fall apart, or like when did things change? And she's like, well, I didn't know it was falling apart. I was completely blindsided. So that definitely is going to continue to be her stance, and it is going to be interesting to see. Like, we're going to get all of our little detective, like
magnifying glasses out and be like, what's going on here?
It is going to be really interesting to see that unfold.
It is going to be interesting to see it unfold. I just can't wait. I feel bad because I know that I'm like relishing in somebody's breakup, but like, it's just, I'm anticipating it.
I know.
It, to say the
I know.
least.
This is a hard one too. And I also think maybe it's like a little bit of the distance now that like we heard this story break. A little bit of a long time, not a long time ago, but like it broke some time ago. I think we've all now kind of processed it and are now just kind of waiting to see what unfolds, especially because like Lindsay and Carl have had such different ways of going about the aftermath, and like their stories are so different, like you said. And we just are kind of like, well, I guess we'll actually see if there were cracks that started to show, because we even saw it last summer, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's just it. Like, some of this cast has like never thought that these two people who they actually know and don't just have parasocial relationships with, like, that they should have never been together. So, and I think that even we're seeing it a little bit in this episode. So anyways, let's get into it.
Yeah, they're like barely in the episode actually, so
there's like
maybe
2 seconds in.
But anytime they are, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to say about it.
Without a doubt. So we of course start with, how all great seasons begin, with the rides into the Hamptons. We have the girls in one car, which is Danielle, Ciara, Paige, and Gabby. Just, they're gabbing, they're chit-chatting, they're gossiping. We find out that Danielle, her ex-boyfriend, Robert, has already started dating somebody. She thinks that there might have been some overlap in that relationship. She obviously wants to get like Ciara like into like a little bit more of like a minxy summer, so that's kind of fun, setting that up for
this. Was such a fun car ride, and like I just love to see Danielle finally being friends with the other girls.
Yeah, like coming into the group fully.
Yeah.
No, I'm excited. And then we also have a second car that's going in, which is Kyle, Amanda, and West, who is our latest new character. Carrie, first impressions on West.
I don't know. At first I was like, oh, okay, this is a bro. But then you're like, oh no, he's kind of like dorky and like seems really nice. And I was like, maybe I will like him.
Yeah. At first, like from like just like an external position, like before the episode even started. I was like, oh, I don't think I'm going to be into this. And then actually, yeah, as the episode was like progressing, I was like, okay, no, actually West is like winning me over a little bit. So,
and he was like vulnerable, being like, I'm not like, I don't know if he's a short king. Like, I don't think he's that short, but he was like, he was talking about how the other guy's tall, and he's like, oh gosh, and like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if I have an opinion just yet.
That's fair.
But I feel like he's fun.
He seems to have like some like self-deprecating humor, which is always my vibe. I'm very into that. So I'm here for that. I also loved his little comment. He's like, because Kyle's like asking him about like his cowboy hat and like what's going on with that. And he's like, this is the only sparkle thing made for men on Amazon. I thought that was a fun comment. So
that sounds like I feel like there's a lot of other sparkles that
I don't know. Maybe not. So we're introduced to West. We are told that he is coming into the group through Lindsay, that they met last summer. And then I guess like allegedly Kyle has kind of like hung out with him a little bit since then. I feel like we're always like a little skeptical of how these people actually get integrated into the group. Well, but
on Chicks in the Office, she did actually say that they met like just out and they just liked them. So it's like, to be fair, that kind of screams they don't know each other. Like if literally their stories like, we just met you at a club and we thought you were cool and we were like, hey, come on our show.
Well, yeah, exactly. And when he says like, oh, I was hanging out with Lindsay and Carl a couple weeks ago, it's like, yeah, you guys could have just like hung out a couple times because you knew you were going to film together, and so you should meet each other in person before. But anyways, so we have that whole dynamic. And then obviously West mentions how Lindsay told him or warned him that she's not everyone's favorite in the house. And Amanda was like, oh, she said that?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's pretty, at least know thyself, right? We then have Carl and Lindsay. They have to do a little setup to let us know why they're not really going to be in the season so much. Obviously, their main kind of like thing that they're going to be focusing on this year is planning their wedding. And then they're also going to DC this week to go to the White House for, I guess, 4th of July. I guess there's like a big firework 4th of July thing that you can go to if you're in DC.
Sure.
Yeah, sounds cool.
I just like that he was like, oh, like who else would get, or Lindsay was like, who else would get invited to the White House? And then Carl's like, probably Ariana. She was like legitimately in the White House.
Yeah. Well, and my only like takeaway really from this scene was just the fact that it seems like we're starting to see how Carl is maybe a little bit upset about the fact that he's like on the outskirts of the group now. He's like talking about how like this is like it's going to be weird for him to like not be in the Hamptons for 4th of July. And yeah, I can kind of imagine that like being in a relationship with Lindsay, who like is not in a good place with the majority of the house, would kind of like thus put you on the periphery of the friend group. And it's not really
well, it did. It like it impacted his relationship with Kyle, which like they were able to bounce back from. It obviously impacted his relationship with Danielle, his relationship with all the girls.
Literally all the girls, yeah. So already starting to see some of the tones of kind of like why this might not be.
Also, he's not like Lindsay also says that Carl has not been helpful at all in planning the wedding. Yeah. And she's like, this isn't my wedding, it's our wedding.
But at the same time, it's like, ooh, but like, is it?
Yeah, I know. I thought that too.
Lindsay, like, if he really was like inserting himself, would you just be like, no, you're wrong?
Yeah, I could see her literally being like, oh, no, honey.
No. It's okay. I got this. Don't worry about it.
You want that color?
It's the wrong color. It's not burnt orange. Anyways, so the group eventually does arrive to the house. We find out that Amanda is in her no patience era, which is interesting. Obviously, that's like kind of like directed towards
specifically
Kyle.
With Kyle, yeah.
Specifically with Kyle, and it's just unfortunate because we're back to a point where like Kyle and Amanda are not in a good place, and it's like so many seasons of Kyle and Amanda not being in a good place.
So I was actually surprised because we just had like wasn't their last season was like their best season they've had. Like they were in this like post-wedding bliss, they were having fun, same on Winter House, and then we were finally like, oh yes, like maybe it was just stress of the wedding and all of these things, and like they're literally back to having the same fights that they were having before they got married.
Yeah,
it's
new and different.
it's troubling. Like
It is.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's also just unfortunate. Like we literally only got like 2 good seasons for them. Like I do think that like last summer for Summerhouse season 7, and then like last season of Winter House, or like maybe 2 seasons of Winter House again, because she was barely in season 3 of Winter House.
And it was so fun when they were having fun. Yeah. It does really. It's also kind of scary that a lot of the fights they seem to get in are like things that you wouldn't think that you would be getting into this far into a relationship. I think at one point, not to spoil anything, but like Ciara, when she was talking about it, was it Ciara or was it Paige?
I think it was Paige about like her personality.
Yeah. She's like, you know, some of these things that he's upset about, like, have to do with like I think with their work dynamic and stuff. She's like is just the personality of your wife.
Yeah.
So like, it's like
not much you can change about that, unfortunately. And yeah, like, you know, yeah, their business has like kind of gone like skyrocketed. It's kind of like gone into this like new like stratosphere or whatever. Like they're doing, and what seemingly from the outside, at least, like they're doing an amazing job. The company is growing. But at the same time, like we'll get into it. We'll get into it later. Anyways, so we also get some more information about West. We find out that his dad was a cattle rancher, or is a cattle rancher, and his mom is an OBGYN. We find out some other stuff about birth that I don't want to get into because it freaked me out.
It's true. Okay, I think this was also something that made me like him. He was just so funny the way that he told the story. And also we found out something about Ciara, that Ciara's really into this.
Yeah, just like, is your dad single? Or is your dad married? Yeah.
I'm excited to actually get to know Ciara, because I feel like this many seasons in, we like don't really know her that much.
I know, and it's unfortunate because I feel like her like first like full like real season was the season with Austin, and that was like such a train wreck, and like that was just such a bad look in so many ways. Unfortunately, not from like her point, but just like from the whole like situation.
Yeah, I do feel like she's getting more confident with herself, especially on this show, and like I'm excited to see that more. Maybe a little bit like a Danielle type of arc.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. Like we got so little of Danielle for so long. We knew that she worked in tech was basically her entire like plot line. But yeah, so West and Ciara actually end up cooking dinner together, which is cute. I like that they talk about how everybody should have a shitty job when they grow up, and I completely agree, because that is very much my philosophy as well. Build some character, some charisma, depending on who you ask. And then we also get a little recap on the Danielle and Lindsay situation. Obviously, they're still not in a very good place, but they can at least be in the same room together, which is fair.
That's crazy, right? Like, I feel like so much of their relationship happens off screen. Like, because we know that obviously they came back together. Yeah. After the Lindsay and Carl thing happened.
Yeah, I think they were like literally like forced back together. They're like, you guys have to be in a good place to be on this show.
You think that's what it is?
Yeah, it felt like it was a little bit of like okay, you guys have to be friends again. Everybody get along here. We're just gonna force this to happen. Like them all going out for supper after the what was it, the reunion? Yeah, they like all go out for supper, and Carl's like, here's the evidence that we're all hanging out together again. Give us another season.
I do think when they actually broke up, though, Danielle went back to being a ride or die for her, at least what you see on like Instagram and everything.
Yes, yeah, and I think we are going to see that over the course of this season too.
But yeah, it's just like, I'm so interested to see how this plays out, man, because like the way that they left it, for Danielle to then just be so diehard riding for Lindsay.
It's very interesting, isn't
after
it?
the way Lindsay treated her. I want to see how that happens.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see how that goes. Oh my god, okay, and then another amazing West moment happens where he literally says, hey Paige, what time do you think you'll do dishes, before or after we go out? And Paige is like, I haven't done a dish since 2008. I was like, jealous. That's what we should all be aspiring to. No more dishes.
I'm so excited for Paige this season.
I know, it's so fun. I love her little retorts. I wish I could be that quick.
I love Paige. I'm so happy that her and Craig are out of that like era where Craig was being awful.
Yeah.
And then we were like, why? Now we're just like, no, I ship these.
Yeah.
I ship this couple.
Yeah, I'm glad that they've kind of gotten out of their awkward teenager phase. So everybody goes to the carnival after that, which I thought at first when they were talking about how they were going to go to carnival, I was like, oh, is this like a club or something? And then I was like, no, like they're literally going to the carnival, like a fair and everything. I loved this. I thought this was fabulous.
It was so cute.
I can't believe they haven't done this before.
It's true. I also wonder why.
It's just why they've never done it before?
Or like why they did it now.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just different.
But it's like literally perfect. It just like brings, I don't know, I just thought it was like so summery, right?
I wonder if they're like, guys, we have fun now. We're going to put you in scenarios. We're going to do a montage of you guys playing carnival games.
Yeah, and all winning. The number of like, I don't know if they were just like giving them to them because they had like camera crews with them or what, but like the number of stuffed animals that they came away with at the end was very, very impressive. So we see, this is where we kind of like start to see the Kyle and Amanda dynamic play out. They did kind of have a scene like a little bit before this that I skipped over where she was like yelling at him for like not helping out basically.
Yeah, she like hates him.
She's really
like,
not into
she's
him.
Giving like Kyle and like Mo.
Yeah.
like in Beverly Hills.
Oh my God. Yeah. Unfortunately.
But spoiler, they obviously make it out because they're doing fine.
There you go. Well, that's good. We can't have too many scandals in one of you guys. So Kyle wins this like massive like Rasta style banana. And he's like is in love with it, obsessed with it. Personally, I'm like, that's hideous, but okay. To each their own. Maybe with the beer goggles, he's like, yeah, this is great. Because he did feel a little bit schwasty in this little clip between the two of them. And she's like, oh, is this for me? And he's like, well, I technically want it for you, but and so they kind of start to just like hash out kind of like what their issues are. Kyle is like, this is what I want for us. I want us to be like able to like, hang out, be couple vibes. It feels like we are like the anti like attached to the hip couple. And Amanda's like, well, that's your fault because you spend all your time in your office. And I've just accepted it, and now I'm happy to hang out by myself. And then he's like, well, yeah, but then when I go away for like, 4, 5, 6 days, like on like a business trip, I miss you. Do you miss me? And she's like, when I leave, I miss you too, but I'm taking care of the dogs and I'm watching TV. I'm busy. I'm doing other stuff. So we're just kind of like seeing like some of those issues in their like dynamic.
It's rough. And they've had this for a while, right? Like Kyle is a self-proclaimed, like, I guess, workaholic.
Yeah.
And that can be really difficult on relationships, especially if you're not on the same page with like how and when you're going to spend your time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then this is the interesting thing, right? Is that like, they're like, okay, we want to go back to basics. Like we want us to be like a little bit more inseparable. Let's use this summer to be our chance to get our groove back. But we find out that like after they kind of have had this conversation at the carnival, when they go to go get on the Ferris wheel, Kyle gets on the Ferris wheel with the banana. Not with his wife, his literal wife.
With it.
Yeah. It's just, and I get it because he's like probably drunk, and so he's like forgets what happened 5 seconds ago. But at the same time, like you can't really complain about like being like this not attached to the hip couple if you're then not thinking about like, how do I be attached to the hip with my wife? I don't know.
Yeah. It's
interesting. It is interesting. We'll continue to see the situation unfold.
Because you don't really know, like, not whose fault. Like, you could kind of see the sides of both of them a little bit. So yeah.
For him in particular, right? Like, I understand you run a business. You are the CEO. Like, you are in charge of the livelihood of everybody that is working for you, and you have to be available to them, or as available as you can be to them. But at the same time, like, as somebody who also has suffered from being a workaholic, like it's not a conducive state to be in, to be like fostering a relationship as well.
No, that's it. I just think that like different than in earlier seasons, we were kind of just like, wow, Kyle's just fully being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, just like calling his wife or his girlfriend lazy. And like, I feel like in the past we haven't really commiserated with him, but I think in this case, like, you can kind of see
Yeah.
Like you're not just like, oh my God, Kyle's the worst. Like that's why I actually do. I feel for this couple because I feel like there's just problems on both ends, and it's just like.
And these are not easy problems to fix too. Like this is not like, oh, you just need to drink less. This is like, well, not that like just drinking less is easy. Like it's not, that's a whole other thing. But it's not just that like, oh, you're partying too much. Oh, we don't actually get to hang out because you're always just like focused on like hanging out with everybody else.
Like parts of their personalities and like the way that they like to live. Yeah. But I am at least happy that we did get those seasons of them having fun together, because that's what makes me be like, oh, they do have good times, and like they do work as a couple, like, or when they work they do really work, whereas I think if we didn't see those seasons we would have just been like, guys, when are we gonna call?
Because that's just it. Like before they got married, like everyone, especially that season before they got married, like everybody was like, oh my God, this is not the right one. Like
Paige, your bridesmaid, is being like, it's okay to say, don't want to get married, to stop, like it's okay to pull the trigger. Anywho,
not a good look. But anyways, so then everybody comes home from the carnival and it's super cute. We get the most adorable moment when literally all 7 of them are like in Paige's bed it's so cute. It is
really cute, and I'm so happy because it's such justice for like Paige and like Ciara and like and Hannah if she was there, because they've gotten so much shit, and now everyone's like, you know what, we're gonna just bring the party to the bed.
And it sounded like they just like had like a really fun time. They were apparently like laughing and like getting along. Like it's just nice to have the like dynamic of the group actually like all kind of like being on the same page together. So fingers crossed this is the way forward and that we have a really good summer.
They've said that it was really fun. Like I think at their BravoCon panel they were like, no, the girls all got along this season.
Well, that's nice. That is good. We do know that they made TikToks together, so that's a good sign. TikTok uniting all of us. So the next day, Wes is like allegedly the first one to wake up. He and Gabby start to make eggs and bacon for the group.
I always just want breakfast in the morning. Sorry. Just like every time you show their scenes and they're just having bacon and I'm like nice breakfast spread, I'm like, I want that.
That looks nice. Even just like the house, right? You're just like, oh my God, what would it be like to cook a meal in a kitchen that size?
Oh, and just go lounge by the pool.
Incredible. Just like steal a piece of bacon and go upstairs and go hang out with Ciara. That's what I would do. Kyle says, I don't remember the room being I remember the room being hot last year. And Amanda says, you keep saying that, but like, how much effing time did you spend in here? And it's just like, oh, okay. So
and it's like
conversation from last night to today.
There's problems when like literally like the most like mundane of sentences can just like throw a person off.
Totally. So that's interesting. Oh no, I put a comment here. Oh, okay. I put a comment and I was like, what does that even mean? And I would like remember writing it down, being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna remember this for sure. So there's this like, I don't know if it's like a study or like what it is, but it's like this like psychological thing between couples where like if one member of the couple says, oh, look at that bird, and the other person like ignores it or like doesn't say anything or doesn't like engage into that, relate to that conversation, like it's kind of the sign of like where the couple is at and if they're a couple that's gonna like last a long time, because you're like presumably the other person's supposed to be like, oh yeah, that's a nice bird, or oh yeah, I didn't see that, or whatever. You're supposed to kind of just like engage with whatever your partner is saying, and for that it's kind of like the same but different version of that, in which Kyle is saying it's really hot in here, and Amanda's like, I'm gonna swear at you right now. You're annoying me. Everything you do annoys me right now. Anyways, so that's my little tidbit on that one. Watch out for those bird comments, guys. Make sure that if your partner says something, just engage, just be nice. So Paige then takes
bring up a fight from the night before.
That's an option too. That's definitely an option too. So as mentioned, Paige grabs a piece of bacon and goes to do a little debrief in bed with Ciara.
I love how you're so detail oriented on this recap that you're like, Paige grabs a piece of bacon.
She goes and gets a piece of bacon. She brings it upstairs. She's like, I'm taking this on the road. That's what I would do too.
It's true. That's why we love Paige.
Yeah, exactly. They talk about how they had like a really fun time at the carnival. They talk about how everyone kind of like got into bed with them and how that was like a really cute moment and how they now feel like so understood. And then they also talk about how there's no passive aggressiveness in the group. There's no digs in the group. Obviously being a slightly passive aggressive potentially comments towards Carl and Lindsay and that whole dynamic that they unfortunately have within the group. And then it's interesting too, because then they flash to Carl and Lindsay in DC just to really make sure that we're picking up the vibes that Ciara and Paige are putting down there.
Like, I wonder why.
I wonder what is happening. I wonder why it's so different. So then obviously they start to set up for the party. As mentioned, it is 4th of July. Paige talks to Craig. Craig is allegedly going to be buying a racehorse. And then Paige says, I'm not marrying a broke man. So
yeah, she's like, this is the dumbest idea you've ever had.
Shut that down pretty quickly.
And apparently he also wanted to buy a soccer team or something.
Yeah, because I guess he watched like a documentary or something about how Ryan Reynolds did that.
Yeah, it's Ryan Reynolds and the dude from Always Sunny.
Oh, cute.
They have they own I don't know, they're basically Ted Lasso.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, they were clearly inspired, so I love that for them. And I think is he still opening that restaurant in New York with Austin?
I think so.
Okay. Well, that's cool. Good for them. So the party setup is happening. Gabby gets on the phone call with Carl and Lindsay. They're talking about how, they're planning on coming up next weekend. Carl says 100p. And Gabby says, it's really great here. Everyone's having a really good time. And the response is just, wow, from Carl and Lindsay. Lindsay in particular, technically. And then Gabby says, yeah, nobody's missing. And Lindsay
that was such a weird thing.
Except for us. And just like, yeah, like the vibes are really good, And I don't think that Gabby knew that was going to be, I don't think it's like shady on purpose or anything, but like she's just, reporting back. Like it's a nice group dynamics. Things seem to be going well here.
I think she meant more like when they of the people in the house currently, there's not like factions of groups. Like everyone is just hanging out together. Yes. But it really sounded like we don't miss you at all, and it's great.
It's actually a much better situation. And it did make me wonder if like Gabby had kind of like engaged in discussions with Carl and Lindsay about what Summerhouse would be like this year and if it would be kind of like weird and awkward, because I feel like that's the only reason why you'd be like, yeah, the vibes are good, everything's going well.
I mean, Kyle also brought it up when he was in the car ride going into the Hamptons with West, and he's like, last year the vibes are pretty off. So I think it's more just all of them like conscious acknowledging that last year was not super fun, and this year they're like, oh, we're actually getting along. I wonder why.
Yeah, so hopefully that's a good sign. They kind of also then take the opportunity to kind of go do another little flashback into the whole like Danielle and Lindsay situation, which I feel like they're kind of lingered. Like, I don't know, do they need to address it that much in this episode? Like, do we not remember that Danielle and Lindsay are like not in a good place? I don't know, I kind of felt like that was like a little overdone, but maybe that's just because we know now that they get back together, so like it doesn't really matter.
Maybe
it's just like that's not the big dramatic thing, though. We don't care about that. Who cares?
Well, I guess there's no yeah, I don't know, that's an interesting point.
Yeah, maybe they were just trying to bring in some extra drama. So then Kyle is doing a little debrief as well with West to kind of get a sense of, how he's feeling about the group, how he's feeling if he's feeling things about any particular people in the group. And obviously he kind of talks about how he's like starting to like hit it off a little bit with Ciara. I did think it's interesting how I feel like the guy, like in this episode in particular, they're talking about like a lot about like height and how like girls are like really obsessed with like height, and when everybody found out that Jesse Soloman was like 6'4", 6'5", like that was like such a big deal, and like he's the tall guy and like West isn't the tall guy. And And I just feel like they were like talking about how it's kind of like shallow that girls always like think about like height so much. And I'm like, West, Ciara is like literally like done a Victoria's Secret like campaign now. Like she's a literal model. Like is it only girls that are a little bit shallow, or it's just kind of like a universal thing?
Ciara. Holy Ciara. Like I just like her.
Right.
It's so true. It's really funny. Like she's a literal Victoria's Secret supermodel. Which I feel like they don't flex that. She doesn't flex that very much. No, I'm like, that is wild.
Enough. I know, right? Like that's crazy. And then Jesse arrives. First impressions on Jesse Soloman, Carrie. Any, if any.
I don't know if I have any. He just like I think it is really funny that everyone kept calling him Jesse Soloman.
Yeah.
And he was like, can't I just be Jesse? And they're like,
right.
no.
It's true.
Again, like just tall bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm more informed about him because I didn't get much from him on this episode. Mm-hmm. He just kind of came in.
Yeah.
But the conversation that the girls had about him was telling.
It was.
What are your thoughts?
My only thoughts that I gathered over the course of the episode specifically, and not in like this, like you know, coming up this season on, was I got like such an ick when he did the singing to the producer, and he was singing, what was it? Open pit barbecue sauce?
Open the barbecue sauce.
Open something barbecue sauce.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh, okay.
He was like, and then it was at that moment that I realized I was a better singer than most people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. I thought it was also weird. Anyway, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but he talks about how he's like from, like he did like in university, he studied vocal jazz. And I just thought it was so funny that all of them were like, oh my God, jazz. We love jazz. Really?
Again, I think they're just like, I don't know, maybe because I'm like kind of short, or like, I don't know if I'm short, but I'm like maybe slightly below average in height. So I've never been like, oh my God, like tall guys.
Right.
Like I've never been like,
6'5".
oh my God. And 6'5". Like if anything, I would be like, what?
It's gonna be a workout.
Like I would just always be like, hello. Some girls like really, really, really value height. Yes. Because like the fact that this man is tall clearly has really informed a lot of his life.
Yeah, that's literally all he has going for him. 100%. Meanwhile, while they're still setting up for the party and I guess when they're getting dressed for the party, Ciara and West have this super cute moment when she's like putting sparkles in his mustache. And he's like, yeah, that looks sick. And I just thought it was so cute. I'm obsessed with them. I'm shipping them officially.
I know, it is really cute. And he's really not a guy I thought that Ciara would go for.
No, and I think that he's like weird and like kind of like kooky. And like I think that like that like is a good match for her. Like I didn't think, I hadn't really like kind of like figured out like what she needed. But I think she needs somebody who's like a little bit weird and goofy, so that she can be a little bit weird and goofy.
It's true, because I think we are slowly starting to see that from her, and it's starting to come out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Anyways.
I feel like she has the opposite of pretty girl syndrome, where like she's so pretty that maybe people think certain things about her. Like maybe they don't think she has as much personality or something like that because she's pretty. Yeah. But I think she's actually like really fun and silly. And
yeah, I think so. And I think we started to see that a little bit at the end of like last season. Like she dressed up as like was it Diana Ross or like some kind of like character from the 70s?
She gave him
she came up with like a Foxy Brown kind of like character thing. It was super super fun and silly. And like I think that she just doesn't, maybe she's shy. So she sometimes like doesn't let that show.
Reserved.
Yeah,
she's more reserved. And then also, like you said, I do think that like I think the Austin stuff just did such a disservice to her because like I think that really informed the way a lot of people saw her. And I just don't think she's like that. Like I think that was a really bad moment for her, and I'm glad that we're getting to see. Oh man, it's always Austin.
Ladies, just stay away from Austin, okay? That's the takeaway from this story.
You could be your own person.
You don't need him. Anyways, so the party finally gets underway. The girls go off. They kind of start to grill Jesse, start to get some details about him. And I think that the big thing that really happens is that we have a Kyle and Paige sit down where Kyle starts to kind of like open up to Paige about his relationship with Amanda and kind of the state that they're in. It's kind of weird because he says, Amanda and I are in a good place. And I was like, don't think so. Don't know if that's entirely true.
Good.
And then he's like, but she shuts me down, which I was like, oh no, it's Tom Sandoval all over again. Okay, let's reel it back.
No.
But then I think he recovers. He's like, we're not functioning as a team. And I'm like, okay, yes. Yeah. We're good. Okay, that's cool. He talks about how, like, they're talking about having next steps. They want to have children together. They want to get a home together. And then, like, he kind of is able to identify that, like, her main beef with him is that he works too much, but he's like, but I'm trying to set us up for success so that we don't have to, like, worry about things in the future. And yeah, and as you mentioned, Paige kind of like sees it as like, one of the issues here is that, like, that's just Amanda's personality, and like some things are never going to change about how she kind of like reacts to you. And like, clearly she's more of an introvert, he's more of an extrovert. Like, they do have that little bit of like an opposites attract kind of situation.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Yeah, again, we already talked about this, but it just makes me feel so bad because, like, he's literally trying to set them up for their future together. Like you can't really fault him for that.
Yeah.
You can fault him for other things.
Yeah. And like, like I get that she's like, well, like, when does it ever end, right? Like, it's kind of like when Tom Schwartz used to use the excuse to Katie of like, well, I can't get engaged to you right now because I want to have a certain amount of money in my bank account before we do that. And it's like, it feels like it's one of those things where often like the goalpost always moves. It's like, I want to feel established. And like, you, in your moment of wanting to feel established is like, okay, well, it's going to be in a year. And then it's like, well, I'm more established now, but I actually want to be even more established when this happens. And you're always just kind of like moving that. And like,
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, that was that.
It makes, as you're saying that, it makes me wonder if this is actually the problem that they're not really speaking to. And it's more because he also mentions that it happened after, remember when Amanda thought maybe she was pregnant and then she wasn't?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's now just them not agreeing on the timeline of that.
Well, yeah, and that's just it. Like, I do feel like there's like the difference between like Kyle's conversation with Paige and Kyle's conversation with Amanda the night before. Like, those two feel like two very different conversations, right?
Yeah.
One is very much like about like the time that they actually spend together, and one of them is about them like functioning as a team. And while there's like
being
similar,
ready to have a kid,
like there's like similarities here, like they're still not like fully the same. And then Kyle even admits to the fact that he hasn't really been transparent with Amanda, and he's actually been more transparent with Paige in this moment than he has with Amanda about like what these issues are.
Yeah, but then Paige is going to go and tell Amanda anyway.
Of course.
So like,
well, that's her job.
Yeah, but it is.
The big bucks.
I think the relationship between Paige and Kyle is actually pretty cute here.
Yeah,
like,
I think so
I think
too.
it's nice that he felt that he can open up to her in that way.
Yeah.
And he knew it was going to get back to Amanda, so maybe that was actually his plan.
It's a very smart plan, honestly. That's what I would do. Yes. So as mentioned, Paige then goes to, the girls kind of assemble. So Paige, Ciara, and Amanda kind of like sit down at the party, and they start to like do their own little debrief. Many debriefs in this group. They talk about how like the dynamics of the house are really good with just the 7 of them. There's obviously now 8, but like Jesse's too much of like a new one for us to really form an opinion on just yet. They talk about kind of like the differences between Jesse and West, and we'll leave it at that for the PG-13ness of this discussion. Go check it out if you haven't seen the episode yet, though.
It's pretty funny. But that's actually what informed my thinking of Jesse, because I was like, oh wow, like he's clearly a very typical bro if they're saying this, and I don't think we were able to see that yet, but like that's what that said.
Well, and even on the coming up this season, they talk about how like Jesse is like, can I hit on the single, do I just have to hit on the single girls, or can I hit on the taken ones too, or something?
Because he's like hitting on Paige. So I don't think we're gonna feel very strongly about Jesse Soloman.
Not strongly, at least in a good way, maybe strongly in a bad way.
Favorable. Exactly. Not favorable.
If
if that's what he's doing, because that's disgusting.
It's a look. It's an interesting look. Anyways, so, and then Paige does go into the discussion that she's just had with Kyle, and Amanda really takes the opportunity to kind of like unload. She's like, you know, the proof is in the pudding. He wants to spend this time together, but then last night he goes on the Ferris wheel with his stuffed animal. He takes his work stuff out on me. And then she says, Kyle is full of shit. He cheated on me and I took him back. Let's talk about that. And it's like, oh, wow, we're really going back here. So
this is, dude, this was such a telling episode of their relationship. Like, she clearly has, and to be fair, like, I don't know how you get over that, to be honest. Like that. Yeah. But like, this is always going to be an issue for them.
That's just it. Like, if it's an issue right now, and like, we haven't heard about this issue in a little while. Like, I think that maybe they talked about it a little bit in the reunion last year, but like, it's still not really like super present. And this is the first time we're hearing about it this episode too, like in all the conversations we've had.
And I feel like we haven't heard about it in a while either. But I feel like it's true. Like when they're not in a good place, it is going to be an easy card for her to pull at.
But is that also like related to her like feeling like he's always like traveling and working? Like if she's like, you know, if I feel like you're far away from me and you're not like hanging out with me and you're not prioritizing me, is it part of the thing that's always going to be in the back of her head? Like, is he cheating on me?
100%. And like, that's like, this is a couple who really, and maybe they are, but they would really benefit from going to therapy because they clearly have things that need to be unpacked from a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
dealt with now before you do have children and buy houses and, you know, share property and do all that good stuff.
Yeah. So. But that's just like, and yeah, like you feel for Amanda. You do feel, I honestly feel like I'm more sympathetic towards Kyle than I never thought I would be.
I know, I used to be so anti-Kyle. Yeah, I do feel for both of them. And yeah, like I want them to both be on like in a good place and on the same page and have this work out, because I do think that they have good stuff there. But yeah, crazy. What a good episode.
It was a good episode. I'm excited for this season. I think it's gonna be more fun. We're gonna get to be detectives and see like kind of the cracks in the relationship of Carl and Lindsay as they progress. Yeah, and it just feels like a nice like kind of like breath of fresh air in comparison to VPR. Like, this feels like a lot like even though they're still dealing with some like pretty heavy topics, it feels like overall like the vibe is just so different from VPR, which is still quite like
heavy, intense, not in a good place.
No, it's true. And like, if they're going to be airing at the same time, we do need some lightness. And from what Lindsay says in her podcast too, is that like to her the fighting mainly came at the end of the summer, so maybe it will be fun majority of the summer, and then it'll all just
it'll only be dark at the end, and that's fine. That's perfect. We don't need too much of that.